Hey gang, it's Ruben. Welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to introduce my next guest in my Chatting With series. This is my bro and my friend, Nick Marino Jr., AKA It's Just Nick. Nick, I am so thrilled to have you on. How are you doing, bro?
Man, I'm doing good. Happy to be on here. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. And so, you've got your hand in so many things. Well, we can definitely get into that. Like, for example, you are the executive director of Tango Charities. You the head of the Feed the City initiative. We're definitely going to get into all that. But of course, like I always like to start off the conversation by just getting into what is your faith about? Like, tell us a little bit about your walk with God and your Christianity story, if you don't mind.
So we diving in hot. We just jumping straight in. Absolutely. And I do like starting with this because this is where it all stems from, right? This is the root of the reasons why I do the things that I do. Pretty much my passion in life is love on people and bring people together to help a huge group of a community impact the others around them. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But with my faith base, it didn't really start until I was in college. So I grew up, and my mom's side is Jewish, my dad's side is Catholic, neither side is practicing. So I didn't really grow up going to church or with my mom's side going to temple or anything. And just my parents let me decide for myself and what I wanted to do throughout life. When I was in college, I started dating a girl my freshman year, and her family was very intertwined with the church. Every Sunday at church, part of small groups. They were volunteering on a regular basis at the church, and we started dating. And all of a sudden, they were like, "Why is she dating a guy that doesn't ever go to church?" Right? It was really a testament to their family. A lot of people you would think would probably just shun, like, "Oh, they're not good enough," or anything, but they loved on me, and they were giving me everything. They were feeding me, I guess you can say, not just food, but with word, with love, and with care. And I learned quite a bit during that time in that relationship. And I know why that relationship happened in my life. That relationship was to help me find my way, because I was definitely the lost one in this situation. But I got to see how her dad loved her mom, how he raised his kids with a faith base, and I had never seen that before. And I love my parents to death, and they raised me on good morals and good values and ethics, and it just wasn't really faith driven. It was just be a good person driven, right? And it was awesome to be able to see that over the years.
Dude, that's so good. And let's segue into your journey going into your current charitable work. You actually started in the corporate world, and like extend that conversation a little bit. Like you pursued a life in the corporate world, and then something just like pulled at your heart to move into nonprofit charity. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so actually, while I was in that relationship, I was playing baseball. Played baseball for 17 years, played in college, and while I was going to that church, I worked. I worked when I had the opportunities to, but not that much when I was in college because of baseball, and the schedule with that was pretty time consuming. So on Sundays, I'd usually be my longest shift. Sometimes I'd work from when I was working at Target at the time while I was in college. So I'd work right from open to close just so I can have gas money for the week and grabbing some meals as a struggling college kid. And anyways, some Sundays when I started going to church with their family, what I would do is I would work one Sunday I worked the full day, and then the next Sunday I would do half day. I'd go to church with her family, and then the second half of the day I'd actually go back into Target and work. So it was pretty demanding on that end. But I was going there, and I was sitting there on Sunday mornings, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool karaoke!" Right at the beginning of church when they had the words on the screen, and you got the worship team singing, and I was like, "Oh, this is a cool spot." And they asked for money, and I don't know where the money goes to, but cool, throw some bucks in the hat and stuff, and that's about it. And I just was always there though, and kept listening and kept seeing the word and kept seeing scripture. And as time grew, I just kept listening harder and harder, and was reading a little bit more and more on my end and doing my due diligence about the faith itself. And then comes the time that they're about to go on a mission trip. And the church that they had attended would go to the Dominican Republic every single July. And they had so at that point for 7 years, and they were coming up on their 8th year on that trip. And so then we were coming up on that, and they said, "Hey, Nick, would you want to go? We're actually doing a camp to do baseball there." And I was like, "Oh, that would be fun. I'll go. How much is it?" They told me the price, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, I can't afford that. I'm working like 1.5 days every 2 weeks, and it's not that my family has the extra funds to do this." And also on top of it, my family's like, "You're going to the Dominican Republic, to the poorest city in the country. Like, why would you do that? It sounds so dangerous, right?" They're like, "There's no way we can support you financially for that because we just don't have the funds." So it was February 13th of 2008. I get a phone call from my ex's mom saying, "Hey, they need to know if you're going to come on this trip or not." So I told her, I said, "Hey, there's no way that I'm going to be able to afford that." About 30 minutes later, I get a phone call back, and they said, "Hey, there's someone that is here. They want to remain anonymous, and they are going to fully fund your mission trip if you want to go." And now being able to look back at that moment, I was like, wow, that person saw something in me, saw something brewing in me to actually put finances behind what they would hope would grow into something better. And so I still to this day do not know who that person is. And I got to actually go on that trip. I accepted that offer and went on the trip. All I had to do was pay for my passport. Went on that trip, and throughout my entire time playing baseball, I always thought that one day I would actually go and pitch at Yankee Stadium, right? I'm a diehard Yankees fan, and it was always my dream, pitch Game 7 of the World Series at Yankee Stadium. Like, how awesome would that be? But actually, God had different plans. God was bringing me to the poorest city in the country, or into a third world country in the Dominican, into Barahona, and it's right on the outside of Haiti, and it's they're going through some pretty difficult times financially in that area, in that region. And he brought me to the baseball field in that city. And I was like, wow, it's not Game 7 of the World Series, but now looking back, I was like, I feel like I won. I like God, that was the baseball field that God was bringing me through or to at that in my life. And so I went there, came back. My life radically changed on that trip. We can go a little bit deeper into that if you want, but I was there in 2008 and just listening to men give testimonies. I'll never forget it. There was one night, 2 of the gentlemen that were on the mission trip with me brought me into a hotel room, and we just had like a real conversation about faith, about Jesus, about God, and what it would look like for me as a man to lead with that. And the next day, as we were kind of wrapping up the trip, we did like a big party for the entire city and the entire area on that Friday. And we came back, and every night we would reconvene on different things that happened throughout the trip or throughout the day. And that was the first time I kind of stood up and I shared what was happening there. And I just was breaking down, crying as we drove away. Like tears were in my eyes, saying bye to my Dominican brothers and sisters. And that's really where my life completely changed. I came back from the trip itself, and I had a scholarship to keep playing baseball after my sophomore year. I played 2 years of junior college baseball, and I had a scholarship to keep playing at a D1 school in South Texas. And I called the coach up and said, I no longer want to play baseball. I want to focus on business. I want to focus on how I can impact communities like the ones I was just in. Let's just say I have never talked to that coach again. He was kind of disappointed. I was the only left-handed pitcher he had recruited that year, and he was not happy. So that happened. I ended up finishing school at the University of North Texas, and I joined some programs there called the Professional Leadership Program, and I got assigned with a mentor. I needed to be able to fill my time, right? I was playing baseball, and it was taking up plenty of time, so I needed to mitigate the lag of what was in my life on a regular basis. So I joined a bunch of organizations, and I started doing nonprofit events around the campus. And we started doing stuff for breast cancer awareness. And we were throwing huge events and everything, having 106.1 radio stations coming out, having Monster Energy drink, a bunch of sponsors. And we were raising thousands of dollars every time we did these events for some organizations. So everyone thought I was going to go into the nonprofit space. And so my dream job, one of those campus programs that I was involved with and I started, was the Tom's Shoes, their campus program at UNT. And we grew it to be the biggest one. My college roommate and I started it. We grew it to be the biggest one. We were doing events all around campus. It was absolutely awesome. My dream job at that time became to be the chief marketing officer for Tom's Shoes and marketing, because that's what I was going to school for and what I'm passionate about. So I always was like, hey, I'm going to move out to California, and we were going to go ahead and do business, but do business that's making a huge impact. And what I loved about Tom's is financials models. And don't get me wrong, nonprofits are 100% needed, but I think that if more corporate companies with their profit margins could actually make a bigger impact than a lot of nonprofits. And nonprofits, if people don't understand how nonprofits are structured, they think that nobody should make a salary in a nonprofit, and that's actually very wrong. Nonprofits just don't have shareholders, right? You still need people to make salaries so they can have a living wage, so they're able to actually be successful in their personal life, right, as well, so they can run that. Everyone thinks that, oh, a nonprofit, no one should make money on it, or somebody shouldn't be paid salaries. Well, that's one of the biggest problems with nonprofits is they're not offering corporate structured salaries. A chief marketing officer in business side of things is making $250,000 compared to $100,000.
Yeah, it's
And
not
that's a big
synonymous with
difference.
100% volunteers, in other words, right? Not everybody's
And the talent you're getting, and the talent that you're getting is completely different, right? But with that talent comes a territory that those individuals can, like, what happens if you do pay someone $150,000 more? But what if that person is that much better and then they raise the fundraising by $10 million, right? It's like, there's a huge difference of what they can actually do. So, so I was like, I want to go work at Tom's Shoes, and ended up taking a job at a marketing agency here in the North Texas area, and was working there. And about 14 months into it, I was like, okay, I'm going to move out to California, and I'm going to go and I'm going to work with Tom's Shoes, maybe as a janitor. I don't know. I just want to work there. So I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. So before that, one of the mentors that I had in a program at UNT, he actually introduced me to this man named Andre Angel, who was starting Tango Tab, which is a mobile app. We worked with restaurants. Every time somebody used our app when they were going out to eat, we fed a person in need locally. And I was like, whoa, this is the Tom Shoes of dining out. And he's just starting this. So yeah, I'll take the job. So how much are you paying me? Oh, it was less money than I was making. Oh, you have benefits? No benefits. Another time, my parents thought I was absolutely crazy. So they thought I was crazy going to the Dominican. And they're like, wait, you have this secure job at a marketing agency. You have great healthcare. You have great dental, great 401k, all these things. You're making a pretty good salary and stuff. You're going to take less money and do these things. I was like, yeah, because I think this is where I'm supposed to be.
Man, that's just such an interesting journey, and it's taken off like in such a huge way, because your charity organization is for the sole purpose of combating hunger. Like, I just think that's just so fantastic. Me and my wife, we have a dear place in our hearts for underprivileged. For me in particular, it's homeless, but that segue is not too far away from the mission of hunger. And it's very interesting because I think your site actually has some of this data point, and not to steal your thunder, but like that even in the US, where we think it's very privileged, right? There's food insecurity here that's very real, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It happens in every zip code around the country. Usually I'll say, when I say hunger, most people think of third world countries instantaneously. If I say hunger in America, they think of a homeless man or woman. And actually homelessness is a huge problem. World hunger is a huge problem. Don't get me wrong on either of those things, but in communities around in the US, about 88% of those individuals aren't homeless that are going to bed hungry every night, right? Homelessness is about 8 to 12% of the people that are going to bed hungry. So it's extremely important to know and see who the faces of hunger are. Those are people that are working everyday jobs. Those are people that are checking you out at the grocery store, people that maybe sold you your coffee in the morning, people that are standing next to you, people that are working in your own office, right? You don't know because their husband may have got laid off or their spouse got laid off, or someone got sick in their family. I mean, my mom in 2012 had a stroke just coming home, like right after a day of work. I mean, my mom worked, there's days that she worked 28 days in a row, like nonstop without a day off, worked her butt off throughout her entire life. And she came home from work one day and had a stroke. Luckily, I was able to move home and help my family make sure. I mean, but went from 2 incomes to 1 income in a snap of a finger with something that she couldn't control. So there's real situations out there with real people that are working hard that need that help.
Yeah, it's definitely like when you actually stop and pay attention, it's pretty heartbreaking. And that's why I just think it's so fantastic that you are part of that mission to combat hunger. Tango Charities is doing it in a really big way. That foundation's, I think it is, as of right now, over 5 million like food offerings to people that need, and through Feed the City, like that's over 3 million, I think, specifically, right? So tell us a little bit about like Tango Charities and then Feed the City.
Yeah, so Feed the City actually started happening before Tango Charities was the thing. So we started Tango Tab, as I mentioned earlier, with Andre, and we were doing Tango Tab and just dealing with the app, right? So restaurants paid us to be on the app. It was free for consumers to be part of this, and to go out and dine out and check in. It didn't cost them anything to give back. And we had people literally feeding hundreds of people in need just by dining out, which was really awesome. And we had a really cool model. So we went to, so from there, when I first started, I was like, hey, you know what? Our team here needs to volunteer at least once a month. So we started volunteering at local, different food pantries, at food banks, stew kitchens, all these different things, right? So we were doing that. And then we were posting on our social media and on our platforms, sending it out in emails like, oh, we just fed X amount of people at this organization. Our users of our app wanted to start coming out to the volunteer opportunities. So we started doing these and inviting people. Now, there's so many great organizations around here. There's actually over 264 food organizations just in North Texas, which is a wild stat. That shows you how big the problem is, that there's that many organizations and this problem still exists at a very large amount of many people going to bed hungry every night. And so with that, we said, okay, the food bank can only have 20 people volunteer, or this organization can only have 10 of us. We're running out of spots. In 2014, to celebrate 2 years, of Tango Tab, we hosted a Guinness World Record event, and we broke the record for the most people making sandwiches simultaneously. And at that time, we had 1,367 people there. We had Mike Madonna, LaDainian Tomlinson, Terrell Owens, a local radio station were the MCs of the event. It was an awesome event, right? And so after that, people were like, hey, we want to do this regularly. And we just made a bunch of sandwiches that day. So a few months after that, we said, why don't we actually create our own volunteer event every single month? We can work with our partner restaurants. We bring people in, and that's when Feed the City was born. So we launched in January of 2015, and we said on the second Saturday of every month, we're going to meet up and we're going to have people make meals and make sandwiches. So we started doing that, and it started getting bigger and bigger, and started growing more and more and more. So then people were like, hey, we want to do this in Plano. I said, well, if we have a volunteer leader, let's do it there. In Austin, in Fort Worth, in LA, in Seattle, in San Francisco, in DC, in Ohio. I mean, it was just like continuing to expand. And that was in 2017. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, I love that, because you guys started in Texas, here in Dallas to start off, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And I think you actually have like a really neat, I know it's one of the up and coming places in South Carolina, and you have like a pretty cool story about how that hub is going to get started, right?
Yeah, so these volunteer leaders were super passionate about this and giving back. And just so we could, just so I touch base and tie this all together. So just like Tom's was a socially good company, and they are not Tom's Shoes is not a nonprofit, right? Sevenly, they're not a nonprofit. Warby Parker, they're not a nonprofit. They make huge, huge impacts. Like I was talking about earlier, how corporate companies can do that. Tango Tab was not a nonprofit, right? Tango Tab itself, we were just hosting these events, right? People would just bring the items and everything. We were just being the the voice to bring all these people together and utilizing our platform to make these things happen. But then we continue to see a bigger need as we continue to grow, right? So sustainable food recovery, right? Bringing people together just to get them introduced and educated about things. I think Feed the City is a great way to get people educated about hunger in America and about hunger in their own communities, right? So when 50% of the people that show up to our events are brand new, they've never heard of Tango Charities, they're like, oh yeah, people are going to bed hungry. They don't really know what that means. And we're able to introduce that to them and get them involved on a regular basis. So we were doing these events, and then we said, you know what, we do need a charity arm. Like Warby Parker has a charity arm, Tango or Tom's has a charity arm and stuff like that. But what is that going to be around? So he said, we'll put Feed the City will be actually under Tango Charities. Cultivate, which is our garden program that we have, building gardens at different schools and different other organizations. That's another program that we have under it. And then we're going to be launching our food recovery program as soon as we get our truck and trailer. So this is continuing to grow. Now, what the crazy thing is, I know I mentioned earlier that you need good talent to run nonprofits and stuff like that. But no one on with Tango Charities is on a salary. We are fully volunteer run. Maybe one day that will change, but right now, I don't think we need it. We are running on all cylinders and we are continuing to grow, continuing to build up. And it's been awesome to see so many people just take the reins of it. So as you mentioned with South Carolina, Pam and Neil Burt, they were volunteering with us for a couple of years and they launched the Allen event here near us. That's actually happening. That happens on the fourth Saturday of every month. And then they said, hey, we're moving to South Carolina. Let's launch it there, right? That happened also with Jason and Sandra Owens in Tulsa. They moved to Rockwall, Texas, and they're launching it there. So they launched it there, and it's a great event. So it's really cool to see people that even through their life transitions, they're so passionate about this and their hunger still exists in the new community that they're going to, that they're still willing to give up a Saturday morning once a month to make sure that they're giving back.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness, I hope this thing continues to explode. You guys have gotten some really good attention. You were featured on an episode of the reality show, the Bradshaw Bunch. I thought that was pretty neat. What were your thoughts about meeting Terry Bradshaw and being on that show?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been cool over the years. We've had athletes, we've had musicians, we've had so many different individuals want to just be part of our events. And we have a special guest that we're going to be announcing for our event in May in Dallas. It's going to be our Feed the City 1000. So it'll be our 1000th Feed the City event. So a lot of people have walked through our doors. I mentioned at our Guinness World Record event, we've had some players there. We've had players at all of our Guinness World Record events. And we started doing corporate opportunities, right? So companies would hire us out to go and we produce big Feed the City at their locations, which is really awesome. But we got a phone call one day and I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a real call. But they're like, yeah, we're an executive producer for the Bradshaw Bunch on the E! Network, and we're looking to do a big day of giving back for the show. And we'd love to feature your organization and have Terry come and the family come and volunteer. So this was like mid-COVID when we originally recorded this. This was in May of 2021. So we recorded it quite a while back and it was really cool. We set up an event. We had individuals come and we had probably about 40 people there and made a Feed the City event. We're able to showcase that on the Bradshaw Bunch. And it's cool being able to work with someone like that, but them using their platform to spread the awareness of a huge problem. And we've had calls from that of other companies wanting to come and do events with us or volunteers seeing it and wanting to start in different cities. And it was for 5 minutes being on a television show, I wouldn't think that much would come from it, but it definitely has. And it's been great to see that.
Yeah, dude, I just hope you guys continue to just get more good publicity, that more people are just made aware of the significant problem. And I just really love that you guys are willing to let anybody help take it and run with it and start their own Feed the City plant in any town. And so tell us a little bit about how someone can do that. How can somebody get their own Feed the City started if they want to?
All they have to do is reach out to us. We handle everything. We set up the restaurant, we set up the pickup with the organizations, we do all the graphics, we give you all the supplies to run the event. It's literally of zero cost. It's about 4 hours of volunteering a month, 3.5 hours the morning of the event, at max. Usually it's around 3 hours. And then 30 minutes on a phone call on the third Tuesday of every month. We have all our Feed the City leaders hop on a call. So it's super easy to make it happen. And I love seeing how many people are wanting to do it, especially now that we're coming back after the pandemic. We had 27 monthly events prior to that. By the end of April, we'll be back to 21 monthly events. And my goal is to reach 40 events, because if we're doing 40 events, that the Feed the City event alone will be providing over 1 million meals a year to people in need.
You're going to try to break another record here this year, right?
Yeah, we are. So we announced the date. So we have to save the dates out. September 17th of 2022. We'll be celebrating 10 years of feeding people in need. We started Tango Tab in 2012. So it's been 10 years. September is National Hunger Action Month. And on 9/17 at Texas Live, we'll be breaking the Guinness World Record for the most lunches assembled in 1 hour. So the record's 10,000. I think we'll shatter that record. That's easy. We have the record for the most sandwiches made in 1 hour at 57,662. So I think we'll be good to go on this one. The logistics will be fun. It's going to be kind of wild, but we'll see.
So you also have just started a podcast. So I want people to hear about that as well. Like, what's your focus on your podcast?
Yes, so it's always been a passion of mine. Like, everyone's like, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? I want to help this, or I want to help that. I genuinely feel that God has led me down a path to see how many people I can get involved at anywhere. It doesn't have to just be with our organization or with Feed the City events, but I just want to get people involved, right? And I feel like I'm heavy on the top of the funnel of volunteering and giving back. And what I mean by that is getting people introduced to these things. So we are going to, with That's Just Good podcast. One thing that I saw a need with is when companies hire us out, they don't always want to focus on hunger, right? There's so many other great causes out there. So I created a company called That's Just Good, and companies hire us out and they get to choose the cause. And then we put together an entire event that's similar to that of Feed the City. So we're working with like O'Reilly Auto Parts and AT&T and Deloitte and some pretty big names. And they bring us into their conferences and they're like, hey, you know what? We want to do something around breast cancer awareness, or we want to do something for education, right? So we create these events. Like, you take something for like domestic violence, right? You can't go volunteer. Like, how are you going to go volunteer? You can raise funds or something like that. There's no action or activity. So we created that. And then throughout the time, I was just getting introduced to so many incredible people like that are running the organizations that we work with. It's like, I want to highlight your stories and share your stories. And it's always been a thought of mine to do a podcast. And my original major in college was to be TV and radio broadcast, right? And so I was like, this will give me a taste of that a little bit. So I was like, let's start this up, but I want to highlight individuals. So if you're familiar with NPR, with Guy Raz, he has a great podcast called How I Built This. So it's something similar to that, but with individuals that are making an impact in their communities.
Nice. Yeah. I hope that thing takes off too. So tell everybody in closing how they can find more information about you, how they can find more information about Feed the City. Where should people go to find what they need?
Yeah, for Feed the City and everything, tangocharities.org is the website. So TANGO, like the dance, and then charities, CHARITIES.org. So tangocharities.org to learn more about Feed the City and how you can help with hunger. The podcast, ThatsJustGood.com. So my following, my handle and everything on social media is That's Just Nick. So whenever you see me do something stupid or act wild, you can be like, oh, that's just Nick. And so ThatsJustNick.com on Instagram, on Facebook. On TikTok and on Twitter.
Wow. So y'all go check him out. My brother, my friend, Nick, thank you so much for being on. It was great chatting with you. And I just pray that Feed the City continues to grow and grow and grow.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Ruben.